Enhancing specific selections. The goals of this week's lesson are to create alpha channels, learn how to isolate an object, erase areas in an image to enhance appearance, use the clone stamp tool to make fixes and repairs, use the magic wand tool for selecting objects, using snapshots, and learn how to create multiple image layouts. Part of the power of Photoshop is the ability to isolate graphics and text to make changes to them. Like I mentioned, the specific tools we are going to cover this week are the wonderful magic wand tool, the eyedropper tool, the clone stamp tool, which some of you may have already used, the eraser tools. There's a background eraser tool that I think you'll be impressed with. Utilizing the channels panel. Up to this point, we've worked mostly in layers, so we are going to explore channels. And also the history panel. There's something in the history panel that we can do up towards the top that is called a snapshot. With modifying objects, this week's lesson will cover several techniques to use to separate elements from images, and so you can make changes to them. We've covered some simple selection methods already. We're going to go a bit more in depth. Like I mentioned, we're going to use channels. So Photoshop uses channels to sort of store or house the color information for each layer here. And also we can have what's called a alpha channel, which is like a layer mask. Now the number of channels depends on the color mode. For instance, we are in RGB color mode. So what we see is actually red, green, and blue. These are the three color channels. And like I mentioned, this alpha channel here, we can use to save selections or store some types of layer masks. We'll also learn how to fix imperfections, how to isolate using specific selection tools, and something called Refine Edge. We're going to use some of the eraser tools over here. And we have the regular eraser, the background eraser, and the magic eraser. So we'll understand what each one of those do. And we'll also look at this clone stamp tool. Snapshots are created in history. And when I create a new snapshot, I'm able to sort of take a temporary copy of any state of my image, and it's added to the top of the history panel. So we'll talk about some pros and cons with those. And then the automation feature that Photoshop has. There are specific actions that we can run that do things for us. We're not going to study actions in this week's lesson, but we're going to learn some of those automation features. So how to maybe create an image that contains various sizes of another image or different images, or how to create a contact sheet, which is a file that displays thumbnail views of a selection of images. The key thing that you're going to take away from this week's lesson is understanding there's no right way of doing something. There's just another way.